Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through ourselves, O Lord, and protect us always with your sweet, compassionate face. Oh, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. Good morning, and welcome back. Thank you so much for coming. I know a lot of you have had to go through real obstacle courses to come here. Really appreciate you making the effort. So welcome back. We're so happy that you're back. We're so happy we're back. We're so happy we could be in the same place together. And obviously what we really need to realize about this is we can't take it for granted. None of this can be taken for granted. I came up with this topic, you are what you love. It must have been some time before the mudslides. I don't know what I had in mind. I still don't know what I had in mind. But, you know, the fires and the mudslides and all that kind of give us new perspective on things. So as I was putting it together this morning when I realized, no, you really do have to talk this morning. You can't procrastinate anymore. It's just things that came to mind about what we've learned from this whole experience and how this ties into the truth of the Vedanta that we all know. So we can just kind of think about this from a deeper perspective now that everyone's kind of coming up for air and looking around and dusting off the dust and saying, okay, we're ash, actually. And saying, okay, so what can we gain from this? You know, the post-fire and mudslides, nothing really seems the same again. Everything has kind of taken on a new meaning, just like the song has taken on a new meaning. We appreciate many things that we took for granted, like being able to drive here, actually go on a road and get in a car and come here. We didn't realize how hard that was until we, after, of course, the mudslides, you couldn't get out. You couldn't come here and we couldn't get out. We realized what a glorious thing it is to be able to get out and get in. We didn't really appreciate the value of water. Water. People would send us notices like, be sure to boil the water. It's like, we would love to have water to boil. When you turn on the tap and it goes, nothing. It's like, love to have that. And potable water, drinkable water seems like an unbelievable luxury. And then you realize how many people around the world, this is their daily experience. They don't have water. They would love to have drinkable water. They don't have either of them. It's like, thank you. Thank you for these things that we've totally taken for granted. We took for granted things like electricity. We took for granted things like phones, phone service, internet. Can you get internet up here? No. Think you can heat the house? No. Think you have, how long the things can you keep in the refrigerator? No. Let the freezer a little longer. So it makes us really, you know, the things that you take for granted, like garbage and recycling, oh man, do we love those guys. Try going a month without them. You really realize how much you know, we say in Vedanta, we are interconnected and interrelated. This really brings it home. When those guys came to turn on the gas, oh man. Oh man. The guys who take care of our garbage, thank you. Thank you for doing this service. Thank you for doing the service that we don't want to do. And we sure appreciate you for doing it. Thank you for doing that. The people who deliver the services that we hadn't even thought about. Like, we became so fond of our flagman down the street. Any of you who tried to come up during this time realized that you could be stuck behind dump trucks literally, you could be stuck behind 20 dump trucks, every one of them filled to the brim with huge boulders the size of the inner shrine. And we would wait behind them, and you can't imagine how grateful we were, because you could often have dump trucks going in both directions at the same time up the street. And without those flagmen, you can imagine how beautiful that would have been. It really would have been a nightmare. And they're out there, they had 16-hour shifts. And they were there just cheerful because they wanted to help. They wanted to be part of the solution, and they were. All the debris clearing in our debris basin and creek, right over there on the other side of the street. We had people working over there almost a full month. Sometimes, and most, for 3 weeks, it was 24 hours a day with clique lights going. And the din was unbelievable because it's like, and we were so grateful because these people, again, were trying to be part of the solution. They worked so hard to make things easier on all of us, to make it so we as a community would be safe. Not only us, but all those people downstream of us. And we realized how much of our life is completely dependent on other people. We live our lives in our little circles, and we think they don't intersect, and they intersect at every single point. And we don't realize it until something like this happens. And then all we can say is thank you, thank you, thank you. So when I realized yesterday that, in fact, I would have to be here today, like a grown-up, knowing what she was going to say, I realized that the only thing I really wanted to say for sure was thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for coming back. Thanks to our Sunday school children, our beautiful kids that we missed. Thanks to our parents who trust us with their Sunday school children, even though we over-sugar them. Fill them full of sugar and send them back. Thank you for caring about us. Thank you for your prayers. They meant the world to us. We had friends we didn't even know we had. We had a bunch of people in New Jersey who were checking on us. Really? They hadn't even been here. So many people from all over the world. Like my old book representative from HarperCollins from 20 years ago sent an email, "Are you okay?" It's like, HarperCollins, oh my God. And then you realize how much we all care about one another. It wasn't that it was an extraordinary situation that brought out the best in everybody. And that's what we have to remember, is this extraordinary sort of situation is kind of our daily reality, but we don't realize it. We don't realize how temporary this whole gig is until a disaster happens or until a terrible illness happens. And then we realize how precious we are to one another, how our lives are totally dependent on each other. And we take things for granted often until things are too late. So thank you all for being here and supporting us and caring about us and really putting in those prayers, because they kept us aloft. They really did keep us aloft. Thank you for caring about our community, because Santa Barbara, Montecito, Carp, really hard hit. So thanks for going out and supporting them, because they're having a tough go of it. We can pull back to life, but some of these people were out of business for 2 months. So whatever you can do to help out their situation, stop in, avoid Amazon, give them a little help. Because we are a community, we're all in it together, and whatever we can do to help each other helps everybody. It helps us, it helps them. And thanks to our neighbors, because they called us up and said, "What are you doing?" We said, "Oh, we're okay, we're fine, we're fine." And they said, "Go into our pantries." And we said, "All right." We had a neighbor that brought to us he had a connection with the fire department. He brought us 43 gallons of water, 40 pounds of dog food, and toilet paper. Continue, yes, yes, love the guy. Thank you. And he had to go through such work to do so. He was all the way down in the valley. He came up through hell and high water, spent the whole day trying to get through to do this. Our neighbor across the street said, "This is how to get my key. Go into the kitchen, go into my pantry, go into my refrigerator, go into my fridge, my freezer," and baby, we did. We broke into people's gardens. Oh, look, peas. And they supported us, and we are so grateful. We often take our neighbors for granted until things come to a real pinch and a shove. And it's like, thank you for being there for us. And we hope we can be there for them. So how does this tie into who do we love? And we are what we love. Well, who do we love? Well, we really love you.
Yeah.
We really love you. And what's wonderful about this, because these tight barriers that we have between me and you, between us and them, sort of dissolve. They become porous because it doesn't become me, it becomes we. We're all in it together. It doesn't become us and them, it becomes just a big us. And what we have to realize is we always have to keep expanding that us, to make it more broad, to make it universal, to expand this infinite divinity that we share with all beings. So this, to break down these barriers that we artificially construct from our own egos, from our own sense of who we are and what other people we think they are. That's our task in this life, because there's nothing but unity and divinity among us. That's it. One of our evacuees who stayed in our guest house, she and her partner lived down the street, and they're right against the creek. So we said, you know, just in case there's a problem, just come over and spend the night, January 9th, the night. So they said, oh no, we'll be fine. It's like, no, please just come out and spend the night. And Jim Witherall, who was an expert on, took the woman aside and put her up against the wall and said, if you stay there, you're going to die. And that kind of scared the bejesus out of her. So without telling her partner, they came up and stayed in the guest house. And they, of course, we said, it's just tonight, don't sweat it, we won't worry. It's like, ended up being more like 3.5 weeks. And we could not have pulled this off without them. They were absolutely invaluable. They knew things like camping and had camp stoves. And they had solar power cell phone generators, cell phones. Like, wow, who even knew these things existed? They had solar lights. It's like the miracle. It was like all it worked for the best for everybody. And what she said that was so lovely was that she said, you know, this has brought me into a deeper sense of unity with the community. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, we were in a disaster area, and we all have this kind of shared experience of what we all went through. She said, yes, but it's more than that. It's this, she said, I can't put it into words. No one can, even the sages of the Upanishads couldn't. But this deep sense of profound unity. And she said, I really feel that with us all. And I said, right, that is the truth of the situation, but we have to expand it. We have to expand that feeling of unity, not only with those in our little disaster community, but those outside of it, to people that might be on the different side of a political spectrum that we are. The people that we just tend to mark off our list as being on the wrong side of history, or ignorant, or people we don't even want to know, because we think they're so profoundly different from us. We have to expand that unity to them otherwise, as well, because otherwise we're choosing to live in ignorance, and that's no way to be happy. The only way to find joy is by seeking and reaching that unity that defines us. This is what we are as embodied beings. We all share that divinity. And when we can tap into that and remember that, we can go through anything together. We can go through anything. What do we love? Who do we love? We love each other. And why? Because we're recognizing that unity that we all share with everybody. So we need to expand it. You know, you are what we love. And disasters have a really quick way of giving us clarity on that. Man, boom. We realize really fast what is and what is not important. And you know what's not important? Things. Things are really not important. When it comes down to it, we know they're going to go away anyway. We hang on to them. We often define ourselves by them. It's like, I'm the guy who has the Prius. I'm the guy who has, you know, the cool sports car. Or I'm the person who has this beautiful house. And we all know in our rational mind it's going to go away. We all know it's going to slip away, but we pretend that it's permanent. We go through this charade every day of permanency. And it's a charade. We go through it by day to day, thinking that things don't change, even though our rational mind says, yeah, I know things change, I know things change, I know things will pass away. But we choose to put a bag over our heads and say it's permanent. And disasters have a fantastic way of putting you on alert. It's like, oh, yeah, it really isn't permanent. It can change, and it does. In one split second, our world can be turned upside down. And those things that you never thought would happen, who would think in our beautiful little bubble of Montecito that we'd have Red Cross trucks giving us water? Who would think that we could be at the mercy of the simplest of all things, weather? Who would think that an inch of rain could make the difference between life and death? We had 4 inches in an overnight. We had 10 inches in one day. Last year didn't make any difference. This year, an inch of rain could mean a huge difference in a person being able to survive or not. All these things that we never think of, and all of a sudden it becomes this clarity comes, woo. So what we are not are our things. What do we love? We love each other. What don't we love? The things that aren't going to help us when these things happen. Because they are not going to give us any sustenance. They're not going to nurture our souls. They're not going to be there for us when we feel afraid, when we feel like we don't have any resources. They are not going to be here for us. So we all know it's temporary, but we pretend it's not. And it's shocking because we can't adjust. We're so used to having our own vision of what it should be that when we see what it actually is, we can't put our minds around it. We look at it and we go, no, it's when I drive down Ladera and turn left, I should not be seeing a Prius stuck in an oak tree. But if I do, that is exactly what I'll see, with a big orange X over the front of it. When I go down Ladera and turn left, and I can't go very far because the bridge is knocked down, I'll also see a boat in a tree. Does not compute, does not compute, does not compute. And so our version of what our reality is supposed to be, because that's what's comfortable for us, doesn't adjust to what we're actually seeing. Because we refuse to see because we don't want to see. We like our comfort. We like our version of, this will last forever. It never does. It never does. And when we remember it doesn't, then we realize how precious all this is. Then we take more care of each other. Then we're much more aware of how brief life is and how much we have to use this blessed opportunity now, because we might not have a chance later. We never know when the cord is going to be cut. We never know that. So what's also interesting is that the people that we often didn't have time for, it's like, oh, this person's great, but you know what, I don't have time, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. All of a sudden, conversations in this general vicinity consisted of, are you okay? Are you okay? No, are you really okay? And you could talk for hours on that very topic, and all of a sudden you had all the time in the world. And then what you really wanted to know is, what about that person? Are they okay? The people that we thought were sort of peripheral in our life, all of a sudden they become very clear into focus, and you think of all their beautiful qualities. Oh, I don't want people to see her anymore. That wonderful woman at the Y with the bright lipstick and the white blonde hair is like, hi! Yeah, didn't make it. And then you realize how precious all these embodied beings are, and how precious our own life is, and how we have these opportunities to make use of them that we often let slip through our fingers because we are too busy. What a joke. When all of your services are taken away when you can't drive down the street, or if you're stuck in mud for how many hours, you realize how much time you have. And time can be our greatest friend or our greatest enemy. Depends on how we choose to use it. We drove by our friend's house. We lived with her for many years. She's a former nun. We drove by her house. It was like beautiful, beautiful garden, a beautiful home, and beautiful garden next door, and it's now in the middle of a floodplain. The house is uninhabitable. She's lucky to be alive. She was evacuated by helicopter after being like 6 hours. The blessed woman can't remember anything, which is a great, our psyche protects us. But you realize that, that we live in a state of denial. And she said this whole thing has changed her entire perspective on everything. Of course it would have to. And she said, you know what? You have to give a talk tomorrow. She said, so I would talk on nothing but don't lay up your treasures where moth doth corrupt. It's like, yeah, because she realized it very viscerally. That all those things we spend so much time tending to and worrying about gone like that. And it was interesting just kind of going through our list on checking on everybody, making sure they were okay. Talking to our friends, being so worried about them. Talking to one of our closest friends here and having her say, I realized that today could be the day I die, when all the mud came right underneath her. And that really changes your outlook on life. And you can have many hours of conversation of, are you okay? Are you still okay? Because that becomes the real question that really matters to us. Are you okay? Because you matter to me. Your well-being is my well-being, which is what we teach in Vedanta. There's only unity. Our well-being is dependent upon the happiness and the joy and the well-being of others. And unless they are okay, we cannot be okay. Because there's nothing but one infinite divine reality. So what we realize that this veneer of civilization that we have can be stripped away in just a few moments with just a little fire going through, a little rain coming down, a little boulders becoming unmoored, some mud coming down. And then we realize how thin the veneer of civilization is, and that what we counted on was not the water, not the electricity, not the gas, not the internet, not the garbage, not the recycling, not any of that. We counted upon each other. And that was the only thing we could count on, was each other. And how precious that bond was. That we were dependent not only in a very simple physical way, but also in a deeply spiritual way by your prayers and your kindness and your support and your understanding. Kept us afloat through this whole thing. Just as our prayers do so for anyone that we love and care about, the people that we want to nurture, that we actually can't physically get to. Our prayers will buoy them along. They will be a lifesaver. They won't know how they are finding that strength, but our prayers are like a raft that's keeping them afloat. Never think that your prayers go for nothing. They mean the world. They've kept us afloat. So this, you are what you love. Remember in the 60s when the macrobiotic diet came out, it was like, you are what you eat. It's like, no, and before that in the 40s it was you are what you eat, and in the 20s it was every kind of goes around. And it basically is saying, well, okay, how do we define ourselves? So in that whole thing with you are, and now we have the thing of eating clean, because you are what you eat. It's like, you know, it's good to be aware of our nutrition. It's good to eat well. It's good to take care of ourselves. Our body is the temple of God. We have to take care of our body. But it can't occupy, it can't be our job. It can't be our focus of our life. It can't be our preoccupation. We can't define ourselves as, no, I am sorry, I'm not kale, I'm not quinoa, I am not even chocolate, which gets closer. And none of this am I. I am not the body. I inhabit a body, but I'm not that which will change, which will perish, which will pass away at a minute's notice. This is at the mercy of mud and boulders and disease and old age. I will not define myself by that, because that which is perishable and transient will never give me permanent joy. I inhabit this body and I take care of it as best as I can, but it's not what we eat. That is because our youth, our beauty, our intelligence, our learning, our reputation, everything is going to pass away. Either earlier or later, but it will eventually pass away. So no matter how tightly we hold on, no matter how we dye our hair, no matter how much Botox we get, no matter how many facelifts or anything that we do, all the intelligence tests we take to keep Alzheimer's or whatever we fear at bay, it will take its effect. Time has its effect. The body will change and it will decay and eventually it will go. It will go. So we cannot cling to it and define ourselves by it because we give ourselves misery when we do that. We can't cling to it. Just as a mudslide can take away our car or our house or our belongings, we can't delude ourselves into thinking that any of it is permanent. It's not. None of it is permanent. That's why we always have to remember who we are and what we are. We're the infinite divine reality, and that alone is permanent. And that alone will give us joy. That alone can be our real identity, because that alone will be that which we can cling to when we find that life shifts and we're finding it very difficult to get up and down that trampoline. Life shifts before we know it. And the sooner we realize it, the better. So this disaster that we've been through has been a really good wake-up call. It's like, wow, it happens in a minute. So there's a Russian proverb that says, going on this, okay, if we're not what we eat, the Russian proverb says, tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. Well, that's really thought-provoking, because we have to really ask ourselves, who are the people that we choose to hang out with? I'm not talking about people we're forced to be around, like our landlords or our bosses or annoying co-workers who were like human mosquitoes or something. But the people that we go out of our way to be with, or the people that go out of their way to be with us. What are their characters like? What do we feel like around them? There's a Japanese proverb that says, if you don't know the man, if you don't know the character of a man, look at who his friends are, because that will show you what birds of a feather flock together, right? So who is being drawn into that flock together? If we want to know about who we are, what we are attracting, we have to look at the people that we surround ourselves with. Are we surrounding ourselves with people that will bring our minds to a higher level? Are we surrounding ourselves with people who are generous, who are compassionate, who are thoughtful and unselfish? When we are with them, do we feel like this person is bringing me up? Do they remind me to act in a better way? Do they, as good friends, remind us when we're going off in the wrong place? They help us when we're going off wrong? Are they just there to support us when we are doing the right thing and other people might be going away, saying, you know, what you're doing doesn't work out for me? Are our real friends the one who will support us when we are doing the right thing, when we are being ethical? Those are the people we have to hang on to. And if we find we're surrounding ourselves with people that bring our minds down, that bring our minds to a lower level, that encourage those parts of us we don't even like, then we have to ask ourselves why we're allowing ourselves to be with them. Why am I encouraging myself to act in ways that I don't like? That I find when I'm with these people, I don't even like what I'm doing. I don't like what's coming out of my mouth. I don't like the kind of things we're talking about. It brings me down. So it's an important thing, because we all assume the characteristics of those we hang out with, one way or the other. We'll start talking like them. We'll start acting like them. Even we don't even want to. We might even assume they start using bad grammar. We use the same thing. They'll use an expression, we'll pick it up too. And we don't, I don't even like saying that. So we have to watch out. We have to really be aware of where we're spending our time and why. Why are we doing that? Why are we encouraging behavior that we don't condone, or we say we don't condone? Then we've asked ourselves, am I really condoning this? Am I blaming it on that person, but in fact, I'm encouraging it myself? We need to ask ourselves these questions, because as we know, life is short, and what can we do to make our lives more happy and joyful? What can we do that we can contribute to the world rather than taking away from the world? So we have to really ask ourselves that, because there is a strong characteristic between what we love and who we are. If we love certain people, it should be because that makes us greater, it ennobles us. It makes us better than what we would be just by ourselves. Now, the power of association is so powerful, and that's why in the Hindu tradition there's such stress put on the power of